Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Kfir C.10. And what we are looking at is essentially a Kfir C7 with an actual proper radar, a HMD and fog stream missiles, as well as a bit more countermeasures which are definitely helpful. But there is a little bit of a caveat to it, but we'll get to that in a minute. I used to be a massive Kfir C7 enjoyer, and I was expecting to really enjoy this thing as well. However, the strengths of the Kfir C7, especially back in the day, where the acceleration and the speed and the overall just kit made it actually quite enjoyable to play, at 13.0, especially considering every game is going to be 14.0, the plane isn't that strong anymore, and then it's backed up by the Derby missiles, which are just among us the worst fog stream missiles in the game. They don't pull very hard and the range is absolutely abysmal. Then we have the Python 3 missiles, which are probably the best non-IRCCM missiles in the game, but as I just said, it is a non-IRCCM missile, and I mean, it's gonna be flared relatively easily. And this all together with the fact that it only has 4 missiles to begin with just means that you have to be very conservative, and when you have a bad missile and you can't really use them sparingly at all, unlike something like an Su-33 which has good missiles and 12 of them, you are just gonna have very little game impact. The flight performance here doesn't really matter, and the Derby missiles, while very bad at short range, are also very bad at long range. So you are looking at something that you have to use at a very narrow range window, which kind of just leaves you, well, fighting for scraps throughout most of your games. Now, you can still use this effectively, of course. The HMD does make it a little bit easier to get closer to your enemy so that you can actually, preemptively kind of notch. The issue is that you cannot shoot him like a Mika because the off-rail performance is literally non-existent, and within 2 kilometers I would not expect this missile to hit unless you shoot him directly at people. Now, this F-15E didn't really see us or didn't fire at us until he got a little bit closer, meaning that he gets into our no escape zone. Luckily we have some terrain here. He's at decent high altitude, doesn't notch, flies directly into it, and we basically get a free kill. And then lastly, we have the countermeasures, and here it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, we have more countermeasures, we have 64, and they drop one at a time, meaning that you actually have 64 key presses, which is actually pretty respectable. However, the flares shoot off to the right. Now, if you know how to flare IRCCM missiles, and if you don't and you want to know how, I made a video on this, I'll put it in the description. But if you know how to flare these missiles, you know that you want them to either go up or down. Rear popping flares are already bad enough, but these shoot off to the rear and then also fly to the side. So they're kind of actively trying to get out of the seeker head. And at close ranges, this makes it almost impossible to flare anything properly. Longer ranges, it's doable, it's still kind of awkward, but you're never gonna be accidentally flaring anything by simply spamming the flares. You really need to make a conscious effort to put it exactly in the right place, and if you don't, you're probably going to eat shit and go straight back to the hangar. When it comes to the overall value, I do think that this thing brings something to the table, because it means that you don't have to grind the entire tech tree for a whopping 3 unique vehicles. The C7 back in the day was really good because there weren't any high-powered radar missiles in the lobby, at least most of the time, and you could actually go to orbit and drop down with your IR missiles. Nowadays this isn't really feasible anymore because your contrail will be spotted across the map and someone will send an MRAM directly into your forehead. So right now I do think that this is the better version of the 2 planes. However, it is still slightly over-tiered, I guess. I wouldn't put this thing any lower, it's just the issue that there is a lot of compression going on. Now let's take a look at the actual gameplay after yapping for approximately 4 minutes. What are we gonna be doing? Well, we first off want to stay a little bit defensive. We can't really pressure anyone at the start of the game because everyone will outrange us. So I'm looking for people that are sub 15 kilometers, and if they are, I might actually shoot a missile their way. We shoot one down, guys about 7 kilometers away, we get a very free kill, and then we shoot the second one off and we go cold instantly. Nice little double kill, and now we just kind of disengage for a little bit. We only have 2 missiles left, one of them is going to be the Python 3. I would say just run 4 derbies, but I wanted to showcase the Python 3 for the video. I do not think it's really worth bringing it along. It is nice sometimes at the close range shots and rear aspects, or perhaps when you don't have the ability to lock onto someone, but they are incredibly easy to flare and I don't think they bring that much to the table. It's one of my favorite missiles in the game, but the lack of IRCCM really hinders it a very big amount. Now, after killing those 2 guys and leaving the battle for a little bit, we start transitioning towards the middle of the map again. And you can tell that right now I'm having zero map presence. I'm not really doing anything. Sure, I killed 2 guys on the flank, but they were probably not going to get that much done anyway, which kind of means that I am useless when it comes to actually affecting the tide of the battle. Now we have this guy in front of us. We can't really shoot at him just yet because he's notching us, and we get locked up by an F-18 radar from behind. It's probably a Harrier, but because we are going so damn quickly and we have all the acceleration in the world, we can kind of just ignore him on our 6 and engage the dude in front of us. As your 27 goes down, we kind of snake around to bleed the missile of some extra speed. AV-8B gets taken down by the other Kfir, and we go into the next game. And most of your good games are gonna look something like that, where you kill some stragglers, you kill people that aren't really that much of a threat, and that is all the game impact you are probably going to have. This plane would be a lot better if it wasn't 16 v 16. Unfortunately it is, so we have to play this incredibly defensively. We come up over the ridgeline here, we shoot off a missile, and we instantly go back into the terrain, because I'm not gonna contest multiple people in the head-on, especially considering I only have 1 missile left. So I kinda just poke out, shoot a guy, and just instantly leave again. Playing this thing like a rat fighter is pretty effective, because you are so fast and you can reposition very quickly, and you just don't wanna have to engage multiple people at the same time. At the end of the day, yes, the acceleration and the speed are very, very good. You're still a mirage basically, and the speed bleed is absolutely ridiculous. If they lock you down from multiple angles, you will be left out to dry very quickly, because you just run out of energy. And once you are slow in this thing, despite the engine, you're gonna stay slow for a very long time unless people leave you alone. The speed bleed is simply that excessive. After wrapping around, we come back into the fight. Now there's a lot of guys in the area, and we notice the FRS is kind of out of position. We drop in, we shoot a Python at him, he isn't looking behind him, so we get a pretty free kill, and now want to stay near the canyon so we can block missiles coming our way. I do want to poke out for a little bit here, see where everyone is, in case that MiG-21 isn't looking somewhere, and we notice that all 3 last enemies are in the middle of the map. So I just want to ride this canyon for a little bit and try to pop up at a very close range, because none of these enemies have very good short range missiles. So all I need to do is pop up at like 1.5 to 2 kilometers, merge with them, and try to loop in behind them. The thing is, there is actually a 4th FRS here. We try to go into the notch, we roll out of the way, we defeat his missile, and we are just bleeding a shitload of speed here, because I have to dodge these missiles. This is an issue. Now I'm going 700 kilometers an hour, and I'm forced to keep turning. I don't want to keep turning, but I have to. I'm going to try to ride the canyon again. We dodge the F-14. We kind of have to go up and over here, because I'm going to try to accelerate away from the FRS, who is right now actually faster than us. I'm trying to obstruct his view. I'm going to dive out here. He's not locking onto us just yet with his radar, so that's going to be heat seeker. And I'm just going to be hugging this canyon for a little bit again, so that all of his missiles just hit the canyon instead of me. After gaining some speed and some separation from the other enemy, I decide to just stamp on the elevator and try to turn in. Now the FRS is never going to be able to pull into this shot with the absolute brick airframe that it has, and I basically instantly get behind him. Now the issue here is that I didn't know that the other FRS was right there, so I'm forced to turn into the opposite direction, which basically gives this guy right here a perfect opportunity to go for a head-on. And if he has any missiles left, I don't want to take it, so I actually kind of go to the left here, make him complete more of a turn, and now I simply disengage and start picking up speed again. I'm gonna try to pull away the FRS from his teammate so that I can actually 1v1 him. And he's gonna start shooting at us. We're only on 103% to not blitz him too fast, but he realizes he's never gonna catch me anyway, and he breaks off. Now I don't want to stamp on the elevator too hard here, because I just don't have any fuel to constantly full afterburn, so maintaining my energy is actually pretty important in case that I need to 1v1 the FRS at the end here, because I am expecting the FRS to win the head-on versus the Mirage, and then I might get a little bit of a dogfight going on. Unfortunately, they pull in at like 700 meters and just blow each other up. But yeah, that's basically the Kfir C.10. You want to play this super defensively, but you do want to use your acceleration and your speed to actually close the gap. It's really map dependent. When you get a map like Golan Heights, I don't think you're going to get much success in this thing. We get a map like this, where you can actually use the mountains, use the terrain to block all the F-14 shooting Faku 90s at you. It's actually pretty enjoyable. Unfortunately, the derbies, together with the fact that you can carry 4 maximum, really let this plane down a decent amount. If this thing had like AIM 120s Or perhaps Mika's, it would complement the playstyle a little bit more. With the Mika, you could do that close range thing, but you could actually do it effectively. And with something like an A120, you could actually use the kinetic energy and lob these missiles extremely far. Unfortunately, we are stuck with the derbies. And just to give you an idea, I barely saw anyone fly this thing. I'm flying it day 2 of the plane dropping, and I think that most of them, including myself, I saw in a singular game was like 4. Almost no one is playing this thing, and I'm not sure if everyone is just looking to sell it or if no one just likes it, because everyone that I did run into that was flying it was complaining about it in chat. So it might have something to do with that. I'm not entirely sure. Just know that while the plane is unique and I think is a pretty decent event vehicle, it does lack some hands and it really needs a particular playstyle. I think it's a decent reward if you don't want to grind the entire Israeli nation. But other than that, I don't think that this thing brings that much value to the table. I'm expecting this thing to be not that expensive in the future. But you know, I said the same thing about the BI-1, and that's probably the most wrong I've ever been in my life. Maybe they changed the derbies, maybe they changed the Python trees, maybe they give it different missiles altogether, and this thing becomes absolutely pogging. We do not know, but in the current state of the game, with the current matchmaker, this thing is not that fantastic. Thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.